I do have a rant that I do want to say about another show that's also on HBO Max. And I'm actually, when is, okay, because I'm going to clip
Is it
this
what?
up and put it out on its own here. I'm going to say something in defense of Velma on HBO.
Oh, you want to play good guy, bad guy with this? No, I could do this all day. Go
Oh
ahead.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
okay. So
Okay.
for those of you,
Okay.
by the way, guys, if you say Velma, if you put a YouTube search and say Velma, so you're gonna find a bunch of dudes who look a lot like us, and they're just gonna be shitting on it, and you can tell after you listen to basically 30 seconds of one of these videos, and you have a good idea of what it's gonna be like. Do you ever watch that or ever seen that channel, The Quartering?
Yeah.
Yeah, that guy's like a human bobblehead. It gets to the point, 15 seconds, and anything that he's talking about, I'm like, I don't give a shit. It's just, and they're gonna try to do this, and they're not, and I'm like, God damn it. This is, you give
He,
not only men but nerds a bad name because it just sounds like it's all bitterness. So I will say that I heard some rumblings when that show before it was coming out that some of the previews weren't all that great. I watched the first two episodes and I was like, what the hell is this shit?
yeah.
Because it seemed like it was so super, super on the left that it's like, the way I would describe those first two episodes was that if I didn't know any conservatives at all, I probably would think this stuff was funny. But the thing is, I do know people who are conservative and who are friends of mine, even though I consider myself a reasonably progressive guy. Uh, it's I was talking to my cousin about this, and I mentioned like I remember when I was a kid, and this is the danger of racial jokes, guys. Is that I remember the first time I heard Polish jokes, right? When you're a
Yes, they're
kid,
hilarious.
yeah, they're hilarious. But the thing is that as a kid, like an 8 or 9 year old, when I discovered these jokes, and when I did meet somebody who was Polish, I was making jokes that they were a fucking idiot. Not like I was like, you're a moron because you're a Polak. It wasn't that, but that was the butt of the Polish people or Polacks were the butt of all those jokes. And I remember I
Yeah.
said this to a guy, like we were at a store or something like that. And my dad got really pissed at me. I'm like, what's going on? He was like, those jokes are just jokes. That doesn't mean that every Polish person is an idiot, Dave. You don't talk to them like that. That's wrong. And I'm like, okay. I thought I was just going along with what everybody else was doing, and I was. And guess what? I was wrong on that. That was one of the dangers about some of these jokes is that if you don't know anybody who's Polish, you might believe that everybody from Poland is a moron. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's kind of what I was thinking the same thing where I'm like, these jokes seems like somebody who doesn't spend any time around anybody who has a different opinion of them. And I'm like, that might be funny if I didn't know those, like, that's not what all those folks are like. Now, that was my initial impression of it. And once again, like we're talking about emotional responses, right? And I was like, internet, no, I'm going to stay away from the
Yeah.
keyboard. I'm gonna give it a second. I'm gonna wait and everything. And I watched the whole series, so I will say that, right? As the storyline of the series goes along, and you're like, oh, okay, it's less of the left is awesome, right is stupid jokes, right? And there's a reason why a lot of people, like everybody, hated this show. It wasn't just conservatives; there was a lot of liberals too. As I'm watching the show, she is espousing like a hard left liberal ideology, but the character of Velma is such a flawed piece of shit person that I think a lot of people miss the joke or the intended joke of that she is a very very selfish freaking mean person and uncaring to a lot of her friends, but yet she's talking like she wants to be this really good person even though she isn't. That's where the humor is in it.
Yeah.
And I think that's why a lot of people on the left really, really started hating the show because they're like, wait a second, she's kind of a bad guy, but she's saying the things that wait a second, is she making fun of those things? And this show is almost like a big troll to a lot of different people, but I don't think that was saying that is like shooting an arrow against a wall and then painting a bullseye around wherever it landed and being like, yeah, that's exactly what I intended to do. You know?
Yeah. 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 That's actually I get what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the analogy of the hitting a bull or shooting an arrow
Mm-hmm.
and painting a bullseye around it. I think that's what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think she intended for any of this. I honestly think this is like some sort of weird projection that she has with this is her personality.
Yeah, and it's basically the character of Velma is basically Mindy Kaling. And if you've
Yeah,
watched any of her stuff before, that you know that's kind of the crux of a lot of her bits is that she's a very selfish person, but she's oblivious about it. And she has no idea. Like, yeah, she does a lot of mean shit, but she's not doing it out of hatred. She's just that completely, blind to her own actions, and that's the basis of a lot of comedic characters, right? And really, when I was thinking down, folks are like, they need to cancel this or whatever. This is bullshit. And I'm like, even though I did not, I think that it was a failed attempt on this style of writing. But I'm like, all right, David, if you're going to be a comedian and you're going to try to defend free speech and stuff, ask yourself this question: were they trying to make people laugh? Yes, I believe they were.
yeah.
It just didn't work. It just wasn't as funny as the way that they thought that it was going to be.